We have some big-time Miami Heat news that we need to discuss on this edition of the Heat Report. I am your host, Nic Rohloff, and it revolves around that final two-way spot because we have a major update on Dru Smith that I just have to share with the Heat fans. And then I will also pose the question on if Miami should sign a different player to the final two-way slot Miami has open. But the reason why we're making this video is because it was recently revealed that Dru Smith, who was widely expected to return to Miami on the final two-way, can't actually sign a two-way contract with the Miami Heat. It was uncovered by the Miami Herald's Anthony Chiang. Excellent reporting from him, so shout out to Anthony. But he reported in a recent article that Dru Smith is eligible to sign a two-way contract with any other team in the league because he has fewer than 4 years of NBA experience. But he's not eligible to sign another two-way deal with the Heat because he has already been on a two-way contract with Miami during 3 different salary cap years. And this is just absolutely massive for Heat fans and everybody that is interested around this basketball team because everyone, including myself, expected Dru Smith to be one of these players on a two-way contract with the Miami Heat. Well, now that it is official that he can't return to Miami unless he gets a standard NBA contract, that begs the question, what is Miami going to do with that final two-way contract, number one? And number two, should they give Dru Smith a standard deal to bring him back? We'll discuss everything about this, but I wanted to get your thoughts on the matter real quickly. Now that you know that Dru Smith could only return on a a standard deal, would you bring him back on that standard contract? Type Y for yes or type N for no. Dru Smith has been a polarizing player for Miami. 3 years ago, he was really, really bad. 2 years ago, he was really, really bad. But last year, he finally turned the corner, and he made Heat fans realize what the Heat front office actually saw in Dru Smith for continuing to give him opportunities on this organization and in this roster. Because he shot above 50% from 3. He averaged 1.5 steals a night, and he played about 15 minutes a night as well off of the bench and actually stole a lot of Terry Rozier's minutes in October and November, and that was before Rozier was officially written off this Heat roster. But his stats that we're showing on screen doesn't even show the full value that he gives you on a nightly basis. His value is in his defense, and he shocked me. We always knew he was an average to an above-average defender, but in those 14 games he played last year, he wasn't an average or above average. He was freaking elite. You look at his advanced defensive stats on Crafted NBA, he was in the 100th percentile on deflections. 100th, which means he was with the best of the best, and there wasn't anyone better with his numbers. And in his adjusted defensive turnovers forced, he was also in the 100th percentile. And in the 80th percentile for rim defense as a guard, and 84th percentile on the Crafted defensive plus-minus. Point is, he was elite. A top defender, and if you had him do this type of stuff and the stuff that we saw consistently over 65, 70 games, there would have been a legit chance he could have been an all-NBA level defender. That is the way he was playing in that short sample size in October and November. And we made a video about a final two-way spot last week on the channel, and I mentioned how I would be intrigued by signing Eric Stevenson. I labeled Dru Smith as someone I would absolutely want to bring back on a two-way deal. But the equation changes with a standard contract because Miami is $1.4 million over the luxury tax. I want Miami to get underneath that and avoid the repeaters tax. Well, if you sign Dru Smith to a standard deal, it's not going to put you into the first apron, but it does put you about $1 or $2.93 million over the luxury tax. So it makes it a little bit more difficult at the end of the season. Also, I think Miami would be very well benefited to add a big man behind Bam and Kel'el Ware as opposed to another guard with a standard deal. Nikola Jovic is the only guy that you have backing up Ware and Bam right now, and to me that is just not acceptable because Jovic is a 4, maybe even a 3. He's not a 5, and I don't want Bam to consistently be playing the 5 either, so I do want a true backup big. Well, we're going to continue the conversation here, but make sure you are subscribed to the channel for daily coverage of the Miami Heat, whether it's news, rumors, two ways, we got you covered, so subscribe right now. Well, I want to take a look visually at where the Heat's two-way contracts stay right now. And originally, I had Golden, Dru Smith, and then an open spot. Well, Vlad Golden, the UDFA Miami signed from Michigan after the draft, he is on that two-way deal still. But they signed Myron Gardner, a player that was on the Summer League squad this past month, to a two-way contract about a week ago. Well, they still have a spot open, and now that Dru Smith cannot be that final spot, we have to ask ourselves who will ultimately get the final two-way contract for Miami, because that is a pretty valuable spot. You can play in about half the games in the NBA season. So it's not like a two-way player will not play any real minutes. No, throughout the course of the season, they likely will play real minutes for the Heat just due to injuries and needs at certain points in the year. And I put this on Twitter, which is another reason why you need to follow me, by the way. But the person I need the Miami Heat to sign to a two-way contract since they can't bring back Dru Smith is Ricky Council IV. I need him on a two-way contract more than I need air. I've been a fan of Ricky Council for a very long time, going back to his days at Arkansas. And when he was coming out of the NBA draft in 2023, I actually had a draftable grade on him before he went undrafted, which we'll go more in depth on Ricky Council here in just a second. But before we do that, I did want to share this unbelievable deal going on right now when you go to chatsports.com/culture sale. This unbelievable Heat Culture hoodie, 50% off. Usually $70. You can get it right now for $35 when you go to chatsports.com/culture sale. Links in the description and comments of today's video. Sizes are running out, and I'm not sure how long this sale will continue to be there, so don't waste any more time. Grab it now. If you are unfamiliar with Ricky Council IV, well, let me teach you a little bit more on him. He started his college career at Wichita State before transferring to the SEC at Arkansas. And before he transferred to the Razorbacks, he actually entered the NBA draft in 2022, but then decided to withdraw and return after getting some feedback from NBA scouts. Well, while he was in the SEC playing at Arkansas, he averaged 16.1 points per game, 3.6 rebounds, shot 45% from the field, and was on the second team All-SEC. And due to his athleticism and continuing development, I thought he was going to get drafted. But he ultimately was an undrafted free agent in that 2023 NBA draft and signed a two-way deal with the Philadelphia 76ers and then got a standard contract for this past season after he played pretty well on that two-way deal. One of the reasons why I liked Ricky Council is because of his size. He's 6'6", 208, so he's built with a solid 6'9" wingspan. And when you watch him play, you would think his wingspan is actually longer than it is because he's just so disruptive on the defensive end of the floor. And when he shoots, he just feels like his arms get so extended. So the 6'9" wingspan, that's what it's listed at. Wouldn't be surprised if it is higher. Obviously, I doubt it is because that's what his measurements were at the combine. But it feels like he is longer the way he's able to disrupt players when he's playing on the defensive end of the floor. And Council had a very good start to his NBA career on that two-way deal with Philadelphia. He appeared in 32 games and averaged 5 points while shooting an incredible, efficient mark from the field, 48.2% and 37.5% from beyond the arc. But this past year on a standard contract, he simply was not able to be as consistent with Joel Embiid, Paul George, Tyrese Maxey, Jared McCain all being out for most of the year. His efficiency took a massive dip to 38.2% from the deck and 25.8% from the three-point arc, which obviously is simply just not acceptable for an NBA rotation player. But there is still a lot to like on Ricky Council, in my opinion, because he is athletic. He can defend. I think he is a good connective defensive piece. And if you're able to get him to a spot where he can be an average three-point shooter, I think he could find minutes in the NBA because of his size and defensive prowess. And I was a fan of Ricky Council. The first year I started scouting the NBA draft, ranking, playing a big board, having scouting reports, this was my write-up on Council IV. I said that he possesses a strong mid-range game that sets up his slashing play style. Elite athlete that helps him finish above the rim and through contact, a good on-ball defender, and his wingspan helps him deflect passes and create adversity for the person he is defending. but he does struggle from deep and to shoot off of the catch, and it seems like those struggles have continued in the NBA, but you never know with the Heat's developmental staff. They have got a great system in place that we've seen develop shooters. Maybe they can get a little bit more out of Ricky Council IV. And I had him ranked as my 48th overall prospect in the 2023 NBA draft, one spot behind Jalen Wilson, who got drafted by the Brooklyn Nets, and one spot ahead of Amani Bates, who was drafted as well in the second round. So I thought he should have been drafted. He ultimately was not, but he made the most of his first year in the NBA with the Sixers, leveraged that into a standard deal, struggled a little bit, and got waived a couple weeks ago. If he is not getting a standard deal from another NBA team and is forced to take a two-way spot, I think Miami would be an excellent landing spot for him personally, but I also think Miami would benefit in a pretty good way with Council, getting another defensive wing in your system. As we know, Fontecchio, Haywood Highsmith, both expiring contracts. Maybe he can develop this year and then get a standard deal in 2026. So let me hear it before we round out the show. Do you want to sign Ricky Council to that final two-way spot Miami has open? Type S for sign, type P for pass. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. I think it's a high upside swing. He has NBA experience. He has a lot of good things going for him with his athleticism, his defense, his finishing. And I think Miami, if you're able to get him in your system, can get the best out of him in terms of his shooting, maybe fix his mechanics to see what's a little bit off there. And if you're able to get him up to a 34 or 35% three-point shooter on 1-2 attempts a night, well, that's a very impactful piece that you could have on your bench as your 9th, 10th, 11th man, not this year, but years in the future. So if Miami is looking to take a little bit more of a high upside swing, I think Ricky Council is the best player available right now in a two-way deal. I could also see Miami looking to add another big to their system because that is something Miami needs. They don't have a lot of depth in the front court. Well, if you want more on the Heat, like I mentioned, follow me over on Twitter. I said I tweeted about Ricky Council the other day, which is actually the case. And if Miami signs a player to a two-way deal, I'll have the news on my Twitter first before we come on the channel and make a video about it. So subscribe and follow me over on Twitter.